Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode from Gaming in the Keats. I am your host Chris, and I'm bringing you round 2. Yes, round 2 of the Duel of Titans, and you are reading the subtitle correctly. It is the conclusion to the dreaded Civil War. So, I've done a battle report with myself versus our club mate Mike. And he's also playing Dread Elves in this tournament. And the first one I lost 11-9. This isn't in the tournament. This was just a practice game. We were practicing out. I reported it. We got in a second game. And that time I took like a really just out there Dread Elf list. Like I went back to an outcast on a dragon. And a flying BSB on a Pegasus, just because I love those models so much and I wanted to use them in some way. And then I ended up hilariously winning like a 12-8 in that battle. So this is the third round. You are witnessing the third round of the matchup between my Dread Elves and Mike's Dread Elves. And yes, there will be a cuddles report. So, the cuddles report, as far as it goes now, in my round 1, my Hydra took out a unit of zombies and lived, so that's 153 points. Mike's Hydra in the first round, he reported back to me, killed 3 Envy Knights, but then subsequently got ran down and died. So far, Mike's Cuddles is ahead. So Mike's Hydra is the cuddlier Hydra. For those of you who aren't aware, basically Mike and I are having a little mini competition to see which Hydra in the tournament does the least amount of damage. Hence why my Hydra is named Mr. Cuddles, because he tends to whiff a lot. Anyway, let's get to the lists. Alright, here is a quick look at my list. I do a more in-depth rundown in my first battle report, but you can of course pause the video here and take a look. Just a fun little note, the outcast when I'm within 6 inches of anything that causes fear, which is basically anything of my army that is within 24 inches of my dread altar. I get to do the reroll ones to wound shenanigans there, and I'm doing the double dread prints, and yeah, I think these two pieces are they're proving to be quite a hassle for some of my opponents who don't have the correct tools to deal with them. But other than that, it's very MSU, double Obsidian Guard. They've been a lot of fun for me. I've been enjoying that. We have the cheeky Beast Breakers, which I've just been putting on the Beastmaster Chariot the whole time. Or not Beastmaster, excuse me. The Dread Prince Chariot, to just shoot him across the board, and you combo that with Witchcraft. Oh, it's great. It's awesome. I love it. So, and I've also been really enjoying Witchcraft. So that's a look at my list. On to Nurgle 652's Dread Elves, aka Mike. We have a very, very similar list set up, but his isn't as MSU-y as mine. His is a bit more blocky. So he's also got the Dread Prince, except this one is a 1-up, 4-up save with Transcendence. He only has the Crystal Ball on his Witchcast, yes, the Outcast Witchcraft Master. That's a tongue twister. And then he's got an Exarch General of Divination, the Oracle of Doom, with a 2-up, 4-up in close combat, and then the Great Weapon Crippling Frost. So -2 defensive skill to any unit that's in base contact with that model. Then he's got the BSB with the Mastery of Slaughter, so multi-wounds 2. Lethal Strike, and Artistry of Death for 40 points. I love how Transcendence is like 10 more points than this item, but that's just but hey, screw it. Like, this is it's I'm sure that's going to be adjusted at some point. That item is so good. Maybe it's because it's on a spear and you can only take it on the officer or the Exarch, so you're only basically getting 3 attacks with it anyway. Maybe a 4th attack if the Exarch does, gets a battle focus in there. But anyway, We've got 29 spears with the executioner's icon. Some 21 temple militants with the flaming standard, so that's pretty cool. You don't see them too often, and if you do, it's probably more like a big block of 30 with the Exarch in there. At least maybe that's in the States, I don't know. What do I really know? 15 auxiliaries for the wizard, the 30 judicators with the Cadron's Penance, so they got the Swift Stride and the Scent of Blood active, and then of course the Exarch goes in there, so that unit has Hatred and Battle Focus, so that's just a really gross combination. Another effigy of Dread, only two pieces of chaff, so the Shadow Riders with the repeaters, and then 5 Black Cloaks to be annoying, and then, of course, the Cuddles Bomb, the Hydra. Pre-game setup, we got map B1, we've got counter thrust deployment and spoils of war. Yep, that's how that's looking there. And for Magic, Mike and I, just for lol's sake, literally took the exact same spells because we have the exact same Magic setup. So this is going to be a really fun mirror match. We both have the Hereditary. We both have Twisted Effigy. I really like that combo with, say, the Obsidian Rock or the Crystal Ball when you do the boost version, so it's effectively a -4 to cast the next spell. It stacks. Stuff stacks. We've got, and because of the little amount of range damage each of us have, the auxiliaries are pretty important in thinning out those infantry blocks on either side. So Twisted Effigy is actually pretty important. We both took Deceptive Glamour as well, and we both have the random movement spell for board control shenanigans. And then, of course, we both have to take Know Thy Enemy, so 2 agility spells on each side, and then we both have Stars Align. So, yeah, that's how that's looking there. Alright, on to the pre-game thoughts here. No alcohol involved. So, macro-wise, I think this matchup is very, very dependent on going first. Because you establish board control and you establish the magic setup against your opponent. It's super crucial. Like, it's such a big advantage to go into the first turn with already having the Hereditary set up and, say, a Twisted Effigy or a random movement thrown out there, depending on what your opponent dispels. It's pretty critical for this one. And especially because it spoils Mike's infantry units can grab the spoils better because they all have more ranks than me and can march, but I have more scoring units to kind of trade out, and then my Obsidian Guard, this is going to the micro things of it, but the Obsidian Guard trade really well with Judicators, I found, so that's to my advantage. Because there's not much damage range damage on either side, like, everything we do to each other is pretty crucial, and you're going to be seeing a lot of close combat and a fight over the objectives like this, which makes the matchup, honestly, I'd say it's unstable, because of the close combat nature of things. And I would argue in this case that for me, having an MSU setup gives me a slight advantage because I can trade into his units better than he can mine. But then, he has tools for dealing with my smaller units. It's like a trade-off, interestingly. I think the Cowboy Prince is going to be an issue for him. I just don't need him to fight some of his characters are pretty good, like the Lethal Strike, like the BSB Lethal Strike combo is pretty good, and then he has the Moither's Mirror, so if I attack that BSB, then I take the 3 hits back onto me. But the Raptor Prince is mobile, and I can easily just move him around, so I'm going to use the Raptor Prince here to, my goal is to either tie up the Flaming Banner militants or go after his bunker unit. And then, the Hereditary spell and the agility spells getting those off are just going to be crucial for either side. So I have it as a yellow, but this is I do think it's unstable because it's dependent upon the objective and it's dependent upon who goes first. All right, deployment side of things. So this is after Vanguards, by the way. So I put the Raptor Prince over here. Mike, let's see, what happened here? Well, either way, I can't remember who essentially dropped to go first. I felt like I dropped to go first. Oh, that's what it was. Yes, excuse me, everyone. So yes, Mike gave me the deployment with the big impassable terrain right in the middle. Like, I hate that. I do get a hill and some ruins, but, meh. So anyway, I dropped for first. It looks like the little laser pointer is slowing down here. So I'll just get rid of that. So anyway, from my left to right, you see the Raptor Prince, you see the Vanguarded 8 Shadow Riders, you have the Wizard Bunker, Spears in the middle, then you have the Dread Effigy, and this is Counter Thrust, remember, so we did have to drop, first, like, we did have to alternate drops, that's why the Obsidian Guard are up where they are at, and then, so I basically created the bubble, the 20-inch null zone bubble in the center to try and push him back, and so my Obsidian Guard are right there in line formation. Then we have my General in the Chariot. We have we have the Hydra right next to the General. We have the other unit of Obsidian Guard. We have a unit of Beast Breakers behind there. And then we have the Chariot on the far right side, from Mike's left to right. Well, I guess no, from our perspective here, we've got a Chariot Prince behind that building, impassable. We've got the Dread Effigy, then you got the 5 Black Cloaks in front of the not Blades of Nob, excuse me, previous version, Militants. We've got his Bunker Auxiliaries, we've got his Judicators in the middle with both the BSB and General in the Judicators, and then he's got the Spears behind with some 5 Shadow Riders, and then his Hydra off to my right side, zoning that objective. Alright, so I push up with everything, my turn 1. The Chariot Prince can't see anything past that house. I think Mike might have made a mistake there, putting that Chariot Prince on the far side. So he's going to have a turn to get around that house, and even then it's a little awkward. So I push up with the Raptor Prince, I push up with the Shadow Riders, and the auxiliaries, a bit more tentatively with the Spears, and then I decide to push up the Obsidian Guard actually rather far. I'm blocking off his Judicators, I'm blocking the line of sight of the auxiliaries, but, yeah, and then, I'm kind of creating a traffic jam with that 1 unit of 5 Shadow Riders to hopefully shoot my Prince and my 8 unit of Shadow Riders into a juicy target there. My Prince just comes up on the right side, same with the Obsidian Guard. I'm respecting the charge range of the Hydra on my right side, making sure I'm just outside of 18 inches, so he can't just march up and breath weapon me, but obviously, so right now, I'm giving him, with my Obsidian Guard in the center, I'm trying to bait out a charge there with his Hydra, but I think he needed an 8, and I honestly think I could have just kept the Obsidian Guard sort of in line with my Spears. I think this is a mistake I made. Now, I do have the Raptor Chariot Prince to countercharge, and my thinking is that if I stick with the Obsidian Guard, because the Obsidian Guard can do some work back, but, he does get a breath weapon, he does get a thunder stomp, but I'm trying to bait all this out, so it's stuff that he doesn't have for my spear block, or the other Obsidian Guard unit. I'm trying to bait this move out, and that would also free up my right side, so I can actually jump on that objective instead. I do have the Raptor Chariot Prince, like I said, to try and countercharge the Hydra if the Obsidian Guards stick, but it is a bit of a mistake, because if I don't stick, I just break, and he can just run outside of my line of sight. So we'll have to see there. In Magic, My opponent does stop the random movement spell onto the auxiliaries because I'm trying to bait them forward. But that does mean I'm able to get a Twisted Effigy off onto that same unit. I think the boosted version, so it's a -2 to cast the spells. It could be small, I'm not sure. And then I do get my hereditary off as well, so we can have the hereditary battle starting. And I do put the witchcraft attribute on the chariot prince, which actually makes it even more awkward for him to get around the building, and so he has to spend a turn to even to just maneuver around the building. So I'm taking advantage of my opponent's mistake there, hopefully. Okay, and in shooting, by the way, I kill 3 of the black cloaks. They pass their panic, and so he's kind of forced to charge them out of the way into I can't remember which unit he charged, whether it be the Shadow Riders or the auxiliaries, but either way, I did another stand-in shoot and killed them off. Now, this does allow for the Temple Militants to charge, but in the same regard, I think they were blocked up by the Shadow Riders and couldn't quite wheel past, or if they could only hit the Shadow Riders, and I would flee that, and then he'd charge with his Chariot Prince, and I'd continue to flee, but the Shadow Riders have feigned flight, and that just means that Chariot Prince isn't coming around the building anyway, so they've effectively have done their job by doing so. So Mike instead elects to just charge the rear of the Shadow Riders there, and the front of the Shadow Riders with the Judicators, so we're again creating the traffic jam. And then yes, you will notice his Hydra makes the charge, and he finds that sweet spot. So this is poor positioning on my part, not only with the Obsidian Guard, but with my Raptor Chariot Prince, and you'll see what happens why. Currently, the Prince can see it, but those players who are adept and know what might happen next, I'm not going to spoil it, but yeah, there are ways to get around the Chariot Prince countercharge. So I, of course, stop random movement as well onto my own auxiliary unit. He does get a Deceptive Glamour off on the Obsidian Guard, and I think he puts the attribute onto my Chariot Prince. I'm not sure where he put the attribute, or he might have put it onto my Raptor Prince. I can't remember. Or maybe the Spears. Anyway, either way, he put it somewhere. But he also gets the hereditary through. So now both of us have our hereditary spells up, which will make for an interesting interplay in this next turn. And yes, as you can see, the Hydra only killed, he did not use his breath weapon, but the Hydra only killed 5 Obsidian Guard. The Obsidian Guard put 2 wounds back on the Hydra. So it's funny because then I tried to trigger the attribute on me. Oh gosh, I can't remember. I tried to trigger the attribute on me, and it hurt the Hydra, so I put another wound on the Hydra, and then, which of course is just juicing it up. Actually, the Hydra might have 4 wounds on it at this rate, to be honest. I'm not sure. I think the Hydra does have 4 wounds, so it did take a hurt back, which allowed the Obsidian Guard to stick. But because my attribute hurt the Hydra, and it's coming from the outcast, that triggered Mike's attribute, and therefore killed some of the bunker from the outcast. That's how we played it. So my attribute triggered his attribute. Which is pretty funny. To be honest, I shouldn't have tried to trigger it with the Hydra. I think, I do see, maybe I also triggered it when the Judicators, I think I also triggered a second one onto the Temple Militants when he killed the Shadow Riders, and so he was also able to reform in a way where it blocked the Prince and the Shadow Riders from getting into his Wizard Bunker. So onto my turn 2, my spears are holding the wall there. I have to move my Chariot Prince over to countercharge. I decide to put the Shadow Riders where they're at, trying to bait out a frenzy charge, and then of course I'm going to flee with the Temple Militants there, but he has a maximized rerollable. And yeah, I move up on my right side. I'm just saying, you know what, I'm pushing up and I'm going to just pressure that spear unit and pressure those and try and claim that right side objective here. And then, oh gosh, yeah, you see, I chose to not charge the Prince and the Shadow Riders into his Temple Militants, and my thinking was, regardless, he's going to be steadfast, and I don't want his Chariot Prince to countercharge my rear of the Shadow Riders, because he wouldn't be able to see the Prince, but he could, in fact, see the rear of the Shadow Riders, and I just didn't want to risk sticking there and then losing those units. So instead, I pulled my Raptor Prince around to threaten that Wizard Bunker, and the Shadow Riders are there to just shoot at stuff and then just get charged and flee. So speaking of which, in the magic phase, my opponent stops random movement on the Judicators, and then I think I fail the Hereditary here, or I fail a spell onto the Obsidian Guard, and then, but I do get a Stars Align up on my Shadow Rider unit, and so I shoot into the Temple Militants, and at this rate, which does a whole bunch of work, because that's 16 shots re-rolling, it was nice. And so now there's only 12 Temple Militants left from the shooting phase. But what ends up happening with the Obsidian Guard, so this is again my mistake, is that, yeah, he kills the Obsidian Guard to a man, unfortunately. I'm unable, I think I did one more wound to the Hydra, so the Hydra has 5 wounds on it right now, but has now taken that Obsidian Guard unit, and he can easily turn to look, to basically look wherever he wants, really, and so that was, again, I'm going to be punished for it in one moment. Okay, my opponent's turn 2. Alright, so there's, all of a sudden you start seeing units missing now. So, order of operations here. So essentially, he had to charge the Shadow Riders, so he elected to charge them with the Temple Militants. Now, I think my opponent made a mistake here in terms of charging things out of order. So he turned the Hydra and he decided to go after the altar to get rid of my fear bubble and my channel 3. I think he figured that the Hydra would just die to the spears with the 1 wound left, and I had my BSB with the halberd right there ready to kill it, hopefully. So he elected not to do that, but what he did was he charged the Shadow Riders, so they fled, then he charged the Prince, and the angle of everything from the Prince with the Shadow Riders through my Spear unit, which passed through Panic through the altar, and then through this Impassable, actually put them off the board. So he gets that unit, unfortunately. He redirects into the Spears with the Temple Militants who failed their charge. He redirects the Prince into my Wizard Bunker, which all of a sudden I knew I had to flee it because now the Scent of Blood is active, so he has an extended charge range on the Prince, so I just decided to flee it. But this is where my opponent made a mistake. Had he waited to charge the Hydra, he could have then pushed my Wizard Bunker even further down this way, and still potentially catch the spears, or catch the auxiliaries with his Prince. But he didn't. He chose to charge the Hydra first. So I got a little lucky there in terms of the order of operations. But yes, you do see the Judicators. They made it into the spears. So here we go. He needed a 9 on Swift Stride, and he got it. Then he turns to face my Raptor Prince with his auxiliaries. He bails his wizard out of the unit and puts the wizard into the spears. You do see a bunch of cards around, but some of these magic cards actually aren't in play, just FYI. I let random movement go through on the Hydra, and this is actually this is pretty important because I kind of saw this coming, that if he did the random move on the Hydra, my plan was then to say, well, if you flee with the auxiliaries, it's going to push them this way, and then I'll try and move the Hydra into them. So I think, so this one I was prepared for. Or if he didn't choose to flee, then I just random movement into his Shadow Riders. So I was ready for both scenarios on that one. But the spells that I needed to stop, where the 2 cards here you see are the 2 agility spells. These are the important ones. And I stopped the Deceptive Glamour. And then the worst possible case of bad luck happened to Mike in this moment. He goes to cast, I believe it was Stars Align, it was one or the other. He casts it, and it's the 8 phase, so it's a -1 miscast. And he rolls 2 to miscast, which turns into a 1. Oh my god. Which means that the spell doesn't go off, which means that the Judicators going into this unit are now, because I'm manning a wall, hitting me on 4s, because of the -1 to hit due to the wall, and I'm going first, which is massive. So, and I have to give it to my opponent here on this, because, you know, he kept his cool when it happened, like he was a good sport about it, and no skill on my part was involved in this. It just was bad luck, and that happens sometimes, and I did feel bad for Mike in this moment, because otherwise his Judicators would have been swinging first, and I'd be losing my BSB's unit and possibly my bunker unit, and that would have been awful. But now my spears actually have a chance of doing some work. Shooting takes off 1 or 2 Obsidian Guard, FYI. And wow, would you look at that. The Judicators whiff when it was their turn to attack. My spears opened up on them and just took out those 2 back ranks. He issued a challenge with his BSB. I accepted with my unit champion. So my unit champion is dead, of course. But I did so much damage in return that it ended up being an auto break, I think. And he really didn't do much damage to me, even with the reroll and the battle focus. Like, his characters whiffed. Mine got all of their attacks in. I mean, it was just brutal. And then you can see he rolled a 12 to break, so that shot him through his own 2 units to where you see it on the right side picture now. So that unit is broken. I elected to pursue to just get me up the board. Oh, yeah, that was rough for my opponent. And then you can see he also failed some dangerous terrains there, too, from going through the water. Everyone passes their panic. But now my Raptor Prince is going to score me a lot of points from charging that unit off the board, potentially. And as you guessed it, my Raptor Prince charges them off the board. And it looks like, you know what? He charged them off the board, so that nets me the Judicators, his General, and his BSB. And furthermore, that panics the auxiliaries. And so they run from the closest unit, which was the No. Maybe, excuse me. I think he elected to flee then. I redirected him to the auxiliaries, and then he elected to flee, which put them into the path of the Hydra. The Hydra gets the random movement enough to run into them. His spear unit passes their panic on a 9-no reroll, and then my spear unit decides to charge into the Temple Militants to try and get their points. And then I do have to, unfortunately, turn to face the Chariot Prince. I'm wondering if I should have not charged the Militants, instead just ranked up and been as far away as I could from the Prince as possible. But yeah, I didn't want the combo charge. I mean, I'd kill the Militants for sure if he charged them in, and then that'd be an 8 maximized no reroll, so I think I could have just taken that charge, but I just didn't want the combo with the Prince in there. But yeah, wow. And you notice down at the bottom, my Wizard Bunker failed to rally, so they're still fleeing. In the previous turn, you can see the Hydra put 5 wounds onto the altar. The Hydra still has 1 wound remaining. I'm not able to sneak that wound through past his fortitude and his armor save, which was a bummer. So my general just has to turn around and look at the Hydra at this rate. So my general's kind of out of position there. I pull up the Raptor Chariot as well to support the Hydra. I have to just turn to face the Obsidian Guard, I guess, to look at the Shadow Riders, and the Beast Breakers just kind of like back up. I don't really know what they're doing at this rate. They're just there. So in my magic phase, I get a stars align and guiding light onto the spears, but my opponent stops Know Thy Enemy. And then the spears don't kill all the militants, but they do break them in combat. And I restrain with the spears and go into bust formation to potentially receive the Chariot Prince's charge. And the militants fled through my Raptor Prince as well as the... Well, no, they haven't. They actually rolled like a 3 to flee, so they haven't fled through them yet. But I think they are decimated at this rate, so they're rallying on half leadership. And, oh yes, and his Hydra kills my altar in this round of combat, and now he's free to charge my wizard bunker off the board. And yeah, he charges his wizard bunker, or my wizard bunker, off the board. So the Hydra has more than enough made up for his points. And my Hydra still hasn't done. Well, I got the 1 unit of auxiliaries, but that's it. So, yep, his militants fail to rally, charge through my prince, or they run through my prince, take some more DTs, and take some DTs from the water. And then, spoiler alert, they fail to rally, and I do get their full points at the end of the game. His prince does make it into the spears, and at this rate, I just kind of have to cross my fingers and hope that I stick for a couple of turns. Yeah. And then further news, he does charge his spear unit into my Raptor Chariot, and honestly, I just elected to flee to just bring that unit closer to the Hydra, and he doesn't choose to redirect from the Hydra into the Hydra, excuse me. So now my Hydra is going to be charging his spears, which makes sense because he wants the extra AP when he goes to hopefully put some more wounds, or to put some wounds on my Hydra. In magic phase, I think he gets I stop the random movement on my Raptor Prince, the guy at the top. I stop that, and but he does get a debuff up on the Hydra, as you can see. So, in other news, also in close combat, shooting kills a few more Obsidian Guards, so I think I only have about like 5 left. But they still hold the objective, thankfully, and they're passing their panic. But now my Obsidian Guard are also blocking my Beast Breakers, so I can't charge his... Shadow Riders. And then his Raptor Prince kills my BSB. He issues the challenge I have to accept because I want that leadership reroll, and he can kill him anyway. So I just accept it and hope I made my Aegis saves. I don't. Surprise. And he gets Transcendence up active on his Raptor Prince. So, but my spears, thankfully, stick on a steadfast with minimize, only 7, because he causes fear, I no longer cause fear. So, yay, the spears stick for a turn. Oh man, it's my turn 4 and so much has happened. So, my prince charges his Hydra. He either elected, I can't remember, he either elected to flee and then didn't flee very far, or he just held, and my prince just eats the Hydra. Either way, I was able to reform. I think he honestly fled, and he just like rolls abysmally, and I just catch him and reform. His prince goes into my spears, as you can see. Excuse me. Hold on. No, it's my turn. Excuse me. My prince, because I couldn't see anything from where my prince was, or I think I could charge the spear unit if I wanted to with my Raptor Prince, but quite honestly, I wanted to just, I didn't want to risk, say, like a long charge, and I just put my Raptor Prince behind the spears, so in case they break, it would hopefully push them off the board. So that was my plan there. And of course, you see my Hydra charges the spears, because let's go, Mr. Cuddles. My Raptor Chariot rallies, and then I'm trying to mosey on away from his Shadow Riders. I realized I made a mistake here. The Obsidian Guards shouldn't have marched, so they should be 5 inches back closer towards his Shadow Riders at this rate. I told Mike about it. I was like, hey, Mike, I just realized I shouldn't have done this. And Mike was like, don't worry, it's fine. So he was a good sport about it, and I was able to at least, by the time we both of us just realized it, it was too late. We'd already gone into a next phase, and like he didn't. It just is what it is, and I think that actually benefits him, as you might see in a next picture anyway. But okay, I don't have any magic to speak of. I don't have any shooting, so close combat. I made a mistake with the Hydra here. I do use my breath weapon. I forgot. I knew this going into it. I knew that I was supposed to allocate attacks onto the wizard, and then I just forgot. I just totally forgot to do that. So his wizard is alive. Which is annoying. I forgot to allocate it, but I did kill a chunk of spears with the breath weapon and the thunder stomps and everything, and he sticks he's still steadfast. I don't do enough to break his steadfast, and he ends up sticking. He's still within his own fear bubble, so it doesn't matter about fear, so that's where we stand. And something I neglected to mention, the Chariot Prince this time broke my spears, ran them down, and he ran far enough to take him out of line of sight of my Raptor Prince, but still within sight of the Hydra. So as you guessed it, his Raptor Chariot goes into the Hydra. Oh, Mr. Cuddles, you tried so hard. So that Hydra is probably not long for this world. He does not charge the rear of the Obsidian Guard. Instead, he just goes to try and shoot them off, and hopefully it's his turn 4, so he probably can do it within a matter of, 2 more turns. And yeah, my general is just super out of position, as you can see here. But yeah, he does get the hereditary through in his magic phase, and I stopped a random movement onto my Raptor Chariot. So now my Raptor Chariot has a rear charge onto those Shadow Riders. It is an 11, but at this rate, I need to save the Obsidian Guard. And then, of course, in other news, as suspected, the Chariot Prince kills the Hydra, poor Mr. Cuddles, and turns to face my Raptor Prince. He turns to face with the spears, and then turns to face with his Raptor Chariot. And here we go! That's right! My Raptor Chariot made the 11 into the rear of his Shadow Riders, which is massive, actually, because now that means I'm going to win the objective. Possibly. It depends on what happens, because as you can see up in the top, you know what? I just decided, screw it. Let's go. I'm going to charge, I'm going to charge your Raptor Chariot Prince with my Raptor Prince and just see what happens. I don't think this is a great idea because he has Transcendence active. So basically, he has 2 extra Raptor attacks back on me, so that's 2 extra potentials for lethal. He also has his Hereditary up, so if I do a wound, he can put it onto the Raptor Prince. My Raptor Prince is, and I only have, he's still going to have a 4-up against me, but I have a charge. I mean, it's just it's basically who can roll 4s on dice better at this rate. So, yup. But I'm going for it. Why not, you know? But yes, as you expected, so I have no magic phase, no shooting. As you expected, I also get a bit lucky here. He reformed his wizard in a way where it took him out of 18 inches from his shadow riders, so he can't punk my chariot. He can't punk my chariot with the hereditary, so the chariot kills the shadow riders, and that saves me the objective. And then in close combat, look at that. My Raptor Prince. So let's back up. My Raptor Prince does not kill his Chariot Prince outright. So what happens is I charge in. I do a single wound to him. He activates the hereditary. The hereditary doesn't do anything to me. Hold on. So this is what happens. Excuse me. Let's back up. Beep, beep, beep. We're backing up again. I have a charge and a wound, right? His Raptor Prince does one wound back to me. And what ended up happening was, because that means I win by a charge, essentially. And the Raptor Chariot Prince broke. And I ran him down with my Raptor Prince. And then I reminded Mike, or we went back and I was like, oh, Mike, remember the hereditary. That might make a difference in terms of, it could just kill my prince. And that whole situation didn't happen, so we went back, but the hereditary didn't do anything to the prince. And that netted me his Raptor Chariot Prince. So there you have it. And at that point, we had to end the game because the round had ended. So it was, and then, the only thing left he had on the board was his spears. He has no range damage. So at that rate, we just decided to call it. And that won me the objective and a lot of points back. And there you have it. That is a 16-4 victory to the Dread Elves, to myself. That was a super, super fun and just brutal, bloody game. Fantasy blood, of course. That was... We look how much both of us had lost. But this goes to that whole mindset of how the MSU style list is slightly more advantageous in this matchup because I'm bleeding less points effectively, and just losing the Judicators with his General and BSB was just massive. That was massive. So it was a 13-7, which made it a 16-4 with the objective. That was incredible. That was a great game. That was so much fun. And Mike and I, of course, were laughing the whole time. And he was just some sportsmanship going out to him when things really didn't turn his way, just from sheer luck when his prince broke. Like, he was a great sport about it. And, we just acknowledged that's what happens sometimes. It's dice. So thanks to Mike for the game. And that also concludes the dreaded Civil War. Yes. All right, post-game thoughts. I actually had a harder time doing post-game thoughts for this one, but we'll go over what I came up with. I'm sure if y'all had any other thoughts about this game, you can, please share it in the comments. In terms of the macro issues, I think I botched my deployment pretty hard. Just a lot of the smaller units kind of were, I felt like were a bit out of position and not supporting each other. And I also, the way that I just moved up, I felt like I had just kind of pushed up in a way to give my opponent charges that just weren't necessary. So I think I played maybe a bit too aggressively with some of my smaller units, which cost me points. And then The fact that I got to go first, though, I think was, again, super crucial because it allowed me the setup to get my Hereditary and Twisted Effigy off and to start controlling the board, which is super important in this game. In the micro things, I mean, God, you could see that in the battle report. I made so many different little positioning mistakes with each unit for not getting my counter charges where I needed to. Mike outplayed me again with the Hydra, reforming it in a way to... And it was like super close. So it's again like when you're doing the positioning for your counter charges, like really making sure that even if your opponent reforms to the flank, you still have the counter charge option. And so Mike outplayed me there. I didn't choose to chaff the Judicators with the Shadow Riders, which ultimately I probably should have, and can't rely on the fact that I just got super lucky with that miscast meant that my spear unit and BSB survived, and that you can't rely on that, obviously. So the play there was, still obviously try and cast random movement onto the Judicators, but you want to be able to ensure that they're blocked, so you're not relying on luck. The Raptor Chariot making that final charge at that last turn really just saved me the objective. I got lucky. I think I got lucky with my Raptor Prince too, in terms of breaking his Raptor Chariot Prince and running him down. Because at that rate, it really was just a dice off, and I rolled better dice. I also forgot to allocate attacks onto the Hydra. I didn't put it on here, but I did like the play. I call it my big brain play. Was accounting for the random movement on the Hydra, accounting for the flee of the auxiliaries, and then, you still have to roll the random movement. I could have easily have not caught them, but I rolled exactly what I needed to. It wasn't far. I think it was a 50-50 on 2 dice. It was a 7, and I rolled it. So, but I had accounted for that. So that was in this entire tournament, that was like the play that I'm like, okay, this was probably the most tactical and smartest play I've done. Everything else is just like, at this rate, just kind of relying on dice, which is not great. Not how you want to be playing, but hey, sometimes it's better to be luckier than good. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the game. I was really, I was happy with some plays. Not happy with how I did a lot of my micro movement, but I just got lucky, I would say, in certain key situations. So, I'll take it. And thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I really appreciate it. Just in general, for any support that you show, whether it be through likes, through comments, through subscribing, or just watching the video. And as you can see, my opponent's Hydra has technically taken more points now than my Hydra, even after dying twice. My Hydra is so far winning the Cuddles Award. So, Mr. Cuddles is holding true to his name. Thanks again, everyone, and I'll catch you in round 3. Ciao, ciao for now, y'all.